Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Charney.
And I'm your co-host, Shay Northrup.
Today we're going to be talking about Microsoft, the EFF, Facebook, Uber, and Sophia, the uncanny robot. So we're just going to jump straight into it, as it were. Microsoft's new, quote, anniversary edition update is breaking webcams, left and right apparently. And this goes from built-in models to the ones you add to your computers. And here's the reason why, and I quote, because, well, Microsoft is so quotable these days. It was important for us to enable concurrent camera access so Windows Hello, Microsoft HoloLens, and other products and features could reliably assume the camera would be available at any given time, regardless of what other applications may be accessing it, which, by the way, seems like something's going to go south fairly quick if you're going to have two programs trying to access it at one time. So here's Microsoft's quick and dirty fix, because I don't believe they thought this out. To resolve this, Windows 10 anniversary update connects applications to an intermediary program that accesses a stream from the camera rather than the camera itself, meaning the camera's feed has to be encoded in a certain format, and that's why, by the way, MJPEG and H.264 have limited to prevent poor performance, which, by the way, H.264 is a leading industry standard. How do you break an industry standard?
I'm not sure. This seems a little strange to me. So basically two applications are trying to pull from the camera at the same time, and then that's why it's not working? Is that what's going on here? That's
what it seems like. I mean, the story's not 100% clear, but that's what it looks like. It looks like what it is some of these cameras. There's a Logitech, and the story I read, it actually says there's a particular like Logitech camera. Well, yeah, there's a Logitech webcam particularly that doesn't work, and a bunch of other ones that seem to break. And my guess what it is, it's probably the driver and the software. They'll want direct access to it. But it sounds like what they're doing is they're having some sort of middleman. So the camera goes to the middleman, and the middleman distributes it to the application. So by that, it sounds like there can be 2 or 3 programs at one time accessing what you're doing.
So have you had a problem with this?
Unfortunately, I don't know. My computer went AWOL this week, and it died the death of 1,000 deaths.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It ironically, after the computer episode, it decided to take itself out, which doesn't really help me. But before that, no, not really.
What was it, episode 24?
Yes.
Talk about?
Yeah.
So if you go back to Golden State Media Concepts, episode 24, you can reteach yourself your tips on how to build yourself a new computer.
Yes, I'm going to have to after this one.
No, this is really funny because this actually reminds me, like, I don't have a webcam for my computer because you really don't need a webcam. Like, you really don't need a webcam unless you make Skype calls regularly. I remember when I was first building my computer and I'm like, oh man, like I'm sitting around. I have one of my buddies with me and I'm like, oh man, I need a webcam. My buddy looks at me and he's like, no, you don't. And I like thought about it for a second and I'm like, oh. No, I don't. No. He's like, yeah, for some reason everyone seems to think that you need to buy a webcam whenever you build a computer, but you really don't need to buy a webcam. When I use Skype, I just use my little picture, which is coincidentally Dr. Manhattan with Nicolas Cage's face.
Kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that's very creepy. I have a web camera. I'm not quite sure why, but what I've used it for in the past, say if there's people working at my house, I set the web camera on a software that I use that tracks movement. Somebody walks by, it tags them, so I always get a picture of the repairman. Me being a tad bit on the paranoid side, but on the other hand, if somebody breaks into my house or say if something goes missing, I say, hey, yeah, it's Bob. You know, it's the guy with the long curly hair and the hat on backwards. But yeah.
That's why I have a dog.
Yeah, I have a dog too, but I got a Boston Terrier. That's not stopping anybody.
No, it's not.
On the other hand, I used to have a 120-pound Akita that if you fed it treats would be your best friend. So mileage may vary if your dog's going to do anything other than drown them.
True.
I don't know. I'm really curious to see how it works, because in theory, what Microsoft doing makes sense, because that way more than one program can use it at the same time. The other question I have is regarding, say if you're using Skype, will Skype allow that? I mean, being a Microsoft product, I'm assuming it, but programs want direct and proprietary access. This also sounds like to me that this has other ways of, putting my tinfoil hat on, is having other things recording you without you knowing it.
Right.
I don't know. That seems a little suspicious to me.
And this isn't the first thing that Microsoft has messed up with Windows 10. I know if you're really having struggles out there, listeners, with Windows 10, if you reinstall it, it'll work a little better. If you did the
update,
if you updated it from like Windows 7 or Windows 8, usually it doesn't work as well. Like, I know some people have been having a problem where Windows 10 will try to update a 64-bit version when you have 32-bit on your computer, and that'll really mess things up.
One of the ways on that particularly you can tell if you have more, I think it's 16, if I remember correctly. And I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, 64-bit Windows can actually see more RAM. So say if you have 32 gigs and your computer's only seeing a certain smaller amount, then you got a 32-bit installed. That's just one quick and dirty tip.
Yeah. So, like Windows has been kind of messing up left and right. If you reinstall it again, it should be fine, but it'll probably get rid of all of your programs. Your files will still be there, but your programs will be gone, and you'll have to re-download them, which is a pain. I had to do that recently. And I know a lot of people have been having problems with audio drivers.
I do. You just gave me a great idea that we should give a really quick tip for you. Going to go along with the one earlier on backing up. What you want to do is you want to have two different backups. You have the one on your computer. You have on-site storage, whether it's a portable hard drive, etc. And you want to have a cloud-based solution, or drop a hard drive off your friend's house. That way, if your house gets robbed, you always have a copy, or your house gets burned down, you always have a copy of your important files.
Yeah, well, the thing was it wasn't actually getting rid of your files. It'll just get rid of, like, if you reinstall Windows after you've done the 7 to 10 update or the 8 to 10 update, if you go and reinstall it again, it'll get rid of your programs, but your files will stay. So, like, say you have a Photoshop, right? You're going to have to reinstall it. Or Steam, for example, I had to reinstall all my games. I still have all of my saved data on my computer, but I had to reinstall my games.
Oh, that reminds me. Windows 10 is still not the worst operating system Microsoft has ever put out. ME, Windows Millennium Edition, is the worst.
Was that Windows 2000?
No, Windows 2000 was separate. Windows ME was the worst, and I actually really want to cuss here just because it was literally, I was using it, it would blue screen on me every 10 minutes. And maybe that's because I was really big and modifying the registry at that point to do certain things I needed to do. But that thing crashed on me constantly.
See, I went straight from Windows 98 to Windows XP. From what I understand, Windows Vista was really bad too. I kind of skipped out on that one, but I had a former girlfriend who had Windows Vista, and I remember opening it up and, like, kind of looking at it and just being like, and doing some internet stuff and seeing all the clickbait and advertisement pop-ups that came up on her computer and all of that. And I'm just like, you really need to get a new computer. She's like, no, it's top of the line. I bought it, 4 years ago?
See, I liked Vista. The only issue I had with Vista is the requirements were ridiculous. Like, you literally went from XP to Vista, and I actually built a computer just for Vista because none of the computers I had at the time were even remotely capable of handling Vista's basic mode. And you had a bunch of other, I wouldn't even say accoutrements. It's just a bunch of useless shine and glass and arrow, and it was a dog. I mean, I actually liked Vista, but the requirements were insane.
Like, I remember too, what was it? Their firewall was more like a fire brick. Like, you could really get through and hack it super easy. Like, XP is really easy to hack too. Like, it's not a very reliable OS anymore. But that was just because over time hackers got better and better at it because it was out for so long. Part
of me is thinking, and this is kind of a guess, if anybody thinks I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm thinking it just because it wasn't something that people were thinking about as much when it came out. Now it's security, 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 security. But now, back then, I don't think it was on anybody's mind remotely. I mean, I always ran some sort of antivirus, but I never used anti-malware until like the last couple of years. And so, in that being said, we're going to go to break, so we'll catch you on the flip side.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back, listeners. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you, Jonathan, so I guess you and I are both too old for Facebook.
I'm not quite sure how real that is, because I don't know too many people, well, I don't know too many young people who use Facebook. Everybody's using Snapchat.
Okay, so I'm actually glad you brought that up. One of the things that Facebook just released is a little app called Lifestage. And so
Lifestage?
Lifestage, yes.
It sounds like something you get in the mail, from like AARP or the Neptune Society.
It reminds me of something from like the Game of Life. Like, you've just received your life stage. Now put, 3 little baby boys inside your car. So one of the things, so this is a new social media app for your iOS phone. It only runs on iOS. There's no Android version.
That's Apple. To all of you who aren't catching up on the names of operating systems.
So it can only be run on an iPhone. And what it is it's basically it's basically what Snapchat is, honestly. Like, it's a video picture app that you record snippets of your happy faces and sad faces for likes and dislikes. You can have your best friends, and you can get people to view your things, but it only works for people under the age, 21 and younger. So if you are 22 or older and you try to get this app, you will only be able to see your own profile, and you will not be able to look at anybody else.
Has it been released?
It has been released. It was released, I believe, on last Friday.
Now this is my first question. Is this going to be a verified account? Do you have to send in a school ID?
I think it's a verified account type thing.
So this is okay. So my guess is you're doing address, name, probably some sort of school ID, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln Middle School type of thing.
So what you need to do is the sign up process isn't necessarily linked with Facebook per se. You have to select your high school, and then you'll see video profiles of people at your high school and the ones nearby. Once 20 people from your school are using Lifestage, it'll show you other people.
That's right. So people actually tell the truth on Facebook. Really? That's a great vetting there, Facebook.
So the guy behind it, Michael Saman, he is 19 years old, and he is a Facebook product manager. So he's been messing with code since he was 13, and I guess he's been working on this for the past 2 years. So he says Lifestage was designed to be like the old Facebook, back when users didn't run the risk of having their posts being seen by their parents and other family members, is what it's say. That's word for word quote. So
that's marketing speak to all you folks out there, saying right now it's like the old Facebook, but as soon as everybody realizes you can lie to it, your parents are going to be on it.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know. I don't know any parents who are on Snapchat, but
I do. But they're my age.
It's basically Snapchat for high schoolers is what it sounds like. So what it is they're like, this is a quote from the man himself, Simon. What if we were to grab what Facebook was from 2004 and bring it to 2016? Bring it into what we have been trying to understand with video and content creation. So, yeah, it seems like it's one of those things where it's just for teenagers. I guess the videos and photos disappear after 24 hours.
Like Snapchat?
Well, Snapchat disappears like in 20 seconds.
So here, now this is just one thing that I'm just curious at is, what does it do about sexting? Is one, and two, this seems like a bad idea if you're locking parents out of what your teenager's doing. Like a lot of people who teach internet safety, quote unquote, will always say you have to have a Facebook account and know your children's Facebook account. Now,
right, you shouldn't be friends with your kids on Facebook.
Now, granted, these are teenagers. Teenagers always don't follow the rules, but this sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Oh, and can you copy videos and pictures? You know, like
I don't think so.
Like I've heard, and I have a Snapchat account just to play with it. But can you screenshot it? You know, but say
you can probably screenshot it. But if they're going to be using the same technology as Snapchat, chances are it'll probably tell you that it's been screenshotted.
Okay, still, I don't know. Maybe this is between us. This is the old guy talking. I don't know. It just seems like a great idea if I was a teenager. Seems like a bad idea if I was a parent.
To me, it sounds like when I first heard about this, of course, my thoughts were, oh man, no, here's another way for predators to get your children. But
by the way, did it make you feel old knowing that you no longer are a part of the hip crowd?
I really wouldn't. I don't use Snapchat and I don't like Instagram, and I honestly personally I do not like social media that much.
Well, you're more of a curmudgeon than I am, because I like Instagram. Nobody actually follows my Instagram account, but except a few people. I like Facebook.
I don't like Facebook. I really hate Facebook. Facebook is just a way to start drama. Like if it wasn't for my professional line of work and the fact that Facebook gets me freelance jobs, I would just get rid of it. Like I hate Facebook. I really do not like social media, guys. Like I'm sorry, I'm just an uncool person. But
no, you're just hip before it's hip.
Oh, whatever. One of the things that really. I like when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, this is kind of scary. But now, I think about it, I'm like, if I was, 16, I probably would have loved this. I probably would use it, and it seems innocent.
So I have a question for you, and this is just because I don't know anybody. I don't really know any teenagers. Do you know any teenagers?
My sister is 16.
What social media does she use?
All I know that she uses is Facebook, and then she's a weeb. It's kind of like a derogatory term for people who watch anime, but it's not.
Oh, was it a kotu or?
Yeah, the new word for that is weeb. And so she's kind of like that. She's really into anime and really into that sort of thing.
Wait, hold on. That's insulting. I'm a huge fan of anime. Of course, when I was watching anime, nobody knew about it.
Well, she has a Gaia account. Do you remember those?
No, I don't even know what that is.
So Gaia is more of a thing from my time. Gaia was this it was a social media website type thing that came out around the same time as MySpace, and you had a little avatar, and you got money, and you dressed them up, and you could get weapons for them and things, and there was a little flash game that you could play with your little avatar in, and then a lot of people who do fan fiction are into it. So she uses Facebook and Gaia. If you haven't looked into Gaia, it's at least worth looking into for a laugh.
See, I think that the interesting thing about that is I always hear the big news and all the ABC, NBC, all the alphabet channels, anybody who's a so-called tech expert always say, this just in, teenagers abandoning Facebook. But I haven't seen that. I mean, granted, I think Shays is becoming more than normal on the fact that he's not a big fan of social media. I mean, for example, when I was his age, social media, I don't know if it was around. It was very early. I'm talking about Friendster early. So I don't know. I I don't think social media is as big as it was. You know, because you always hear kids are using Instagram, then they abandoned Instagram for Snapchat, then they abandoned Snapchat for Twitter, and I don't know.
Nobody's abandoning these things for Gaia.
Oh, no, yeah, since I didn't know what it is. But on the other hand, I just logged into my MySpace account the other day.
Oh, yeah?
A lot of moving GIFs.
Man, so, like, that's another thing. So one of the things that you actually just reminded me, one of the things that is cool about Lifespace is the fact that, like, it does get rid of your stuff. So if I wish that Facebook would just get rid of everything that I said in the past. Like, because I looked at some of the stuff I posted on Facebook when I was young, because it'll do the 4 years ago you said this, and I'm like, oh.
See, I like that.
Oh, no.
See, I'm a big fan of that, because if I find something funny, it makes me laugh, or if it's something stupid, you know, I'll post it, or, you know, do the slap forehead thing going, oh, I was a smart guy that time. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hit another break. So as always, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Now, self-driving cars have been a movie trope forever. And the recent last, say, 20 years, you got movies like iRobot, you've got anime like X-Driver, and a myriad of other television and movie shows.
It's in Doctor Who, too.
So the most interesting thing is Uber is going to have self-driving car fleet that will hit the road this summer. Now, that's on top of Uber's already big problems around the world. Now, Uber has retrofitted a Volvo XC90 sport utility vehicle to support its driverless car software. Anonymous Ubers will be sent to Pittsburgh residents. Uber users at random, meaning you won't be able to specifically choose the car currently, and the ride for now will be free of charge. So the first question is, how happy would you be if a car just showed up with no driver? I mean, I know that's not going to be the case, but I think I'd be freaked out. I mean, isn't that how Christine started? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I remember that. Man, that's a good movie. It has the worst line in cinema history, by the way. I hate rock and roll.
I would have to argue that and insert I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
What was that from?
Fast and Furious.
Oh.
So the way this apparently works, well, the cars will drive themselves. A human being will still be in the driver's seat along with a person riding shotgun, taking notes on a laptop about the ride. In addition, cameras on the inside and outside of the Volvo will take note of everything that occurs during the trip, though presumably this preoccupation will only be necessary at the start of the program. So the question with this is, this kind of defeats Uber's purpose. This is kind of drinking everybody else's milkshake, because Uber is the ride-sharing service.
One of the things that, you know, is important about Uber is the fact that it could be just about anybody driving your car. Like, I don't know, like, it's given a lot of jobs to people, especially here in Sacramento. Like, there are a lot of Uber drivers.
So that's the thing I was wondering. I mean, if you're an Uber driver, are you happy about this? Do you even know about this? Do you care about this? Because whether you like it or not, this is the future. Now, granted, this may be 2020, 2030, or by the time I'm in a retirement home.
Well, it's really funny because I love the fact that it says that there's somebody with a clipboard sitting shotgun. Like, I'm just imagining this, like, you know, a little bit pudgy, overweight, you know, hip kind of guy who's just kind of like, I'm very unimpressed with what you're wearing today, Jonathan. I'm going to have to dock you for that.
See, I was thinking he's taking some sort of notes like, oh, system blah 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 blah. Just some sort of like ridiculous, very pedantic notes about how the vehicle's pulling to the left a little bit to the left without realizing it needs to be aligned. The most interesting thing about this, and I think this is a mandate for all self-driving cars, is Uber vehicles will mandate human intervention when going over bridges. When approaching bridges, the car will chime, indicating the human driver will need to take over. Bridges are hard, Dave. So this is actually not a bad thing. I think my guess it'll be over bridges, certain roads, anything. My assumption, and I'm kind of thinking this as I go, but part of this is I'm thinking is it's going to be any roads, say, that are dangerous, anything like bridges, toll roads. I don't know. This is going to be more to this. This just seems like this is the beginning.
Well, and I'm kind of wondering how it's going to deal with construction workers.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know. See, all of these things keep saying this, but how do you get real-time data like that? I mean, is there going to be a database? Does the DOT have a database of roads that are being worked on?
Right. Like, that's something I'm kind of curious about. And, I guess it's kind of cool that they're offering it for people for free, like, as of now, because it's like, oh, you could get driven off a bridge, but hey, it's a free ride.
But I guarantee when they show up, they say, we need your thumbprint here. What's this for? Life insurance. Nothing.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I'm excited about driverless cars. I mean, I've always thought it would be neat. My problem is if I have an autonomous car, I don't want to touch the wheel. I want to be reading the newspaper. Yes, I still do that. I want to be watching the news. I want to be doing anything but driving, which, by the way, is something you actually have to do. You have to pay attention to it. So it kind of seems useless. I mean, maybe this is my inner curmudgeon, but I don't get the point.
It's one of those things, too, where, just driverless cars in general just kind of scare me. I've watched enough science fiction to just be afraid that I'm going to be, one of the things that, surprisingly, my old man is kind of afraid of is he's afraid that, driverless cars will start taking you to, political prison camps because of your political viewpoint. And you laugh, but, it is something scary that could happen, and
I'll be honest. As a film guy, you need to make that film.
Oh,
that is, it's totally on the realm of plausible, but that sounds like an amazing short film right there.
Right. Well, and another thing, there was an episode of Doctor Who where the cars were starting to drive people at locking themselves down and driving them into rivers and gassing people and all kinds of things.
I don't know. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen, about self-driving cars? I mean, obviously Shay and I aren't, I wouldn't say fans, but we're a little bit on the skeptical side. I'd like to see them work. The only concern I have is for Uber drivers themselves. Now, granted, maybe this is something Uber is trying to do so they can future-proof their business for a while, because obviously if you take a look at the news, there's cities that have banned Uber. I think there's countries that have banned Uber.
Which cities have banned Uber?
I don't remember. I remember hearing a bunch of complaints. There's a city in the news recently that said they're going to be taxing Uber for it, so it makes up for lost revenues on taxis.
Oh, yeah, I read about that too.
So I don't know how well this is going to work, but I know Google's been having self-driving cars for a long time, and the last time I heard, the only accidents they had was because somebody took over the steering wheel and started driving it.
Well, there was also the Tesla crash. But on another note, also involving Uber, was Uber called out Lyft a little while ago and was saying, oh, that Lyft company is only worth $1 million. We've totally got them. Because I don't know about you, but there's been a huge battle going on, at least here in Sacramento. I see more Lyft cars than I do Uber cars.
I've never actually used any of the service of those, and maybe it's because I'm a tad bit on the paranoid side, but I just don't like the idea of driving in somebody else's car.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit cautious about that myself. I don't want somebody to pull a gun on me and try to mug me or something.
I know the only big thing, and I know enough about Uber and Lyft to be dangerous, is I don't think they vet their drivers enough. Granted, they probably do simple background checks, but in my humble opinion, and believe it or not, this is my actual humble opinion, is I think they need to do a lot more work. I think they need to meet with the people. I think they need to see them. I think FBI background check. I think you have to make these people above reproach.
I'm pretty sure they do an FBI background check.
I don't know. It seems like I've watched too many movies where stuff like this just goes sideways really fast. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to this episode. This is episode 25. I want you to do me and Shay a favor. I want you to go to gsmcpodcast.com. Click on the technology section and subscribe. You can find us everywhere on the interwebs. The other thing I would like you to go to is go to facebook.com. Go in the search bar, type in GSMC Technology Podcast. This is episode 25. And if you have any comments about this show, I want you to comment. We do take a look at the Facebook page routinely, and we will comment back. And for Shay Northrup and Jonathan Charney, as always, thank you for listening.